My first suitcase hadn't even touched the dorm parking lot asphalt when his fist connected with my jaw right there among the chaos of move-in day. 4 strangers rushed forward, a tiny RA, an ex-military security guard, a linebacker, and a girl with a camera. They didn't know my name, but they saw enough to burn down an entire town built on lies. And when I pulled out my phone, hit record, he had no idea he'd just signed his own death warrant. My name is Avery Monroe, and I should have known better than to let Kurt help with move-in day at Briarview State University. The Pennsylvania August heat was already suffocating at 9:30 a.m., and the freshman parking lot pulsed with barely controlled chaos car horns, orientation volunteers with megaphones, sobbing mothers clutching their babies one last time. Jesus Christ! Linda, did you pack her entire fucking room? Kurt's voice cut through the noise as he yanked my second suitcase from his truck bed, letting it hit the asphalt hard enough that I heard something crack inside. Probably the picture frames I'd wrapped in bubble wrap. My mother stood by the tailgate, hands fluttering uselessly. Kurt, please, people are what watching me do all the heavy lifting while Princess here texts her friends. He turned those bloodshot eyes on me. The smell of last night's whiskey leaked from his pores, mixing with the diesel fumes from idling cars. I wasn't texting anyone. I was documenting. Screenshots of my frozen bank account. The email from financial aid asking about the parent who'd accessed my FAFSA. The credit alert I'd gotten at 2 a.m., showing a new card opened in my name. I can carry my own stuff, I said, reaching for the handle of my suitcase. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Where's your bank card? What? Your debit card? The one linked to your student account? Hand it over. The crowd moved around us like water around stones, other families too wrapped up in their own dramas to notice ours. A girl nearby was arguing with her dad about her roommate assignment. Twin boys were tossing a football over their mom's head while she tried to read a campus map. That's my money, I said quietly. My work study, my loans. Loans I co-signed for. A lie. I'd made sure of that, at least. You think I'm letting a 19-year-old loose with 20 grand you'll blow it on? On textbooks meal plans. I pulled my wrist free, skin burning where he'd gripped it. I know exactly where that money needs to go. Kurt, including the $3,000 that disappeared from my savings last week. The slap came first sharp, loud enough that the football twins stopped mid-throw. Then his fist followed, connecting with my jaw in a burst of white light and copper pennies. I hit the asphalt hard, my phone skittering across the pavement. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard the chaos erupt. Holy shit. Security. Don't fucking touch her. 4 bodies materialized between Kurt and me. The smallest, a Latina girl with an RA lanyard, dropped into a crouch beside me, her hands hovering but not touching. Don't move. Okay, I'm Maya. I'm trained for this. Security's coming. A mountain of a guy in a Briarview football shirt had Kurt's arm twisted behind his back. Man, you just fucked up big time. Behind him, an older man in a security uniform was already talking into his radio, his body cam's red light blinking steadily. Need backup at Lot C. Assault in progress. Perpetrator detained. Get the fuck off me! Kurt thrashed against the football player's grip. That's my stepdaughter, I corrected, spitting blood onto the asphalt. My hands shook as I reached for my bag, not for my phone, but for the manila folder I'd been carrying for 3 days. And check your texts. Kurt, check what Mom sent you an hour ago. A girl with a professional camera had been shooting the crowd, probably for the student paper. Now her lens was trained on Kurt's face as he pulled out his phone with his free hand. I knew what he was seeing, the photos of forged signatures, the loan documents he'd filed using my social security number, the HELOC paperwork where he'd signed Mom's name. You little bitch, he breathed. No, I said, letting Maya help me to my feet. I'm just someone who learned to keep receipts. The security guard his name tag said, Hal Bishop, stepped forward. Sir, I need you to come with me. The police are on their way. Kurt's face went from red to white. This is family business. Not anymore, the girl with the camera said, checking her LCD screen. This is evidence. The campus health center smelled like antiseptic and microwave popcorn. Maya sat beside me while a nurse documented my injuries: split lip, bruised jaw, the old yellowing marks on my wrist from last Tuesday when Kurt had grabbed me over breakfast. Everything photographed, measured, noted in triplicate. This isn't the first time, the nurse said. It wasn't a question. No. I held an ice pack against my jaw. But it's the last. Maya squeezed my hand. Outside, I could hear Hal Bishop talking to the police, his military-precise testimony cutting through the afternoon heat. The linebacker Derek, I'd learned, was showing them videos from 3 different angles. Lena, the journalism student, had already uploaded her footage to multiple cloud servers, maintaining that chain of custody she'd mentioned. But none of them knew what I knew, what I'd spent all summer uncovering. It started at Northbridge Analytics, the consulting firm where I'd interned. My supervisor, Janet, had been teaching me about financial forensics following money trails, spotting fraudulent patterns. I'd been practicing on dummy data sets, until one night at 11:45 p.m., I decided to run my own family's finances through the same algorithms. The first flag, a HELOC home equity line of credit opened against Mom's house 6 months ago. Mom, who could barely use online banking, had somehow navigated a complex refinancing application at 3 a.m. on a Sunday. The second flag, withdrawals every Friday and Saturday night, always between midnight and 4 a.m., always at casinos across the state line, always just under the reporting threshold. The third flag made me vomit in the Northbridge bathroom, a student credit card in my name, opened using my social security number, already maxed at $15,000, the purchases online gambling sites, liquor stores, a motorcycle dealership. Avery. Maya's voice pulled me back. The detective wants to talk to you. Detective Sarah Munoz looked like she'd seen this story before. Your mother, Linda. She's refusing to cooperate. Of course she was. He's isolated her for 3 years, I said. Convinced her she can't survive without him. Classic financial abuse tactics. He controls every penny, every account password, every I understand. Munoz flipped through her notebook. But without her cooperation, pressing charges becomes complicated. Unless... I reached for my backpack, pulled out the folder that had made Kurt's face go white. Unless I have proof of identity theft and fraud that doesn't require her testimony, inside 3 months of evidence, organized with the precision Janet had taught me, bank statements highlighted with yellow legitimate expenses, pink suspicious transfers, orange outright theft, photocopies of signatures, Kurt's authentic one from his driver's license, the forged ones on loan documents, screenshots of emails sent from Mom's account while her phone's GPS showed her at work. Jesus, Munoz muttered. This is FBI territory. I finished. Yeah, identity theft across state lines, wire fraud, FAFSA fraud, which is federal. But I wanted to start local. I wanted him to know it was me. The door opened. Lena poked her head in. Camera absent. Hey, there's someone here you need to meet. Naomi Klein from the legal clinic. Naomi Klein looked like she ate men like Kurt for breakfast. Silver-streaked hair, designer suit that somehow survived the humidity, eyes that had seen every dirty trick in the book. Miss Monroe. She shook my hand, firm and brief. I've reviewed the preliminary evidence. We need to move fast. First, we freeze everything, every account, every credit line, every asset. Then we go for the jugular, the house. The house is in Mom's name. The house he's been secretly borrowing against. The house that's now leveraged at 80% of its value thanks to his gambling debts. She smiled, sharp as winter. Your mother might not press charges for assault, but she can't stop us from protecting her assets. We file for financial abuse protection orders, lock down every account, and then, she pulled out her tablet, showing me a document. We audit 3 years of taxes. He's been claiming me as a dependent, collecting my education credits while I file independently. Tax fraud, Add it to the list. Naomi turned to Detective Munoz. I'll need copies of everything for the civil case. Criminal proceeds parallel but separate. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, probably Kurt from Holding. You're destroying your mother, you selfish bitch. I showed it to Munoz, who photographed it. Another piece of evidence. Another paper cut in his story of being the devoted stepfather, the responsible adult managing family finances. One more thing, I told Naomi. There's a notary who's been stamping documents without verification. Patricia Hendricks. Offices on Maple Street. She's in on it. Naomi's smile widened. Now that's a RICO case waiting to happen. The dorm room felt smaller with 5 people crammed inside. My roommate hadn't arrived yet, so we'd claimed both sides' legal documents spread across one bed, laptops and phones charging on the other. The air conditioner wheezed against the Pennsylvania humidity while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in harsh white. Okay, let's map this out. Maya had transformed from concerned RA to strategic coordinator. She'd locked the door, posted a "Do Not Disturb Medical Emergency" sign, and pulled out a legal pad. Campus resources first. Title IX office opens at 8 a.m. tomorrow. They'll issue a no-contact directive that covers all university property. Already forwarded my body cam footage to campus police and made 3 backup copies. Hal said, sitting cross-legged on the floor despite his bad knee, you could see him favoring it. Chain of custody maintained. Timestamp shows 11:47 m.m. For the initial assault. Derek hunched over his phone. Massive fingers surprisingly delicate on the screen. Coach wants to know if you need a character witness. Says he remembers you from the financial literacy workshop you ran for the team last spring. I'd forgotten about that. Another piece of evidence that I wasn't some irresponsible kid who needed Kurt managing my money. Lena had her laptop open, external hard drives spread like talismans around her. I've got 14 minutes of raw footage from different angles. The crowd reactions, the assault, his face when you mentioned the documents. She looked up, met my eyes. I won't publish anything without your explicit consent. But Avery, this could help other victims. When you're ready. When I'm ready, I agreed, then winced as talking pulled at my split lip. Maya's phone lit up. Shit. Housing office. They're getting calls from someone claiming to be your father, demanding your room information. He's not my father. The words came out sharper than intended. My father died when I was 12. Lung cancer. He was a teacher. Left me a small life insurance policy that Kurt doesn't know about. It's how I paid for the lawyer. Silence settled over the room, heavy as the humidity outside. We stick together, Hal said finally. His voice carried the weight of whatever he'd seen overseas. I've seen too many young people get crushed by systems that should protect them. Not happening on my watch. The clinic got us an emergency hearing, I said, checking Naomi's latest email. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. She needs witness statements from all of you. Done, they said in unison, then laughed at the synchronization. Derek's coach arrived at 9:15 p.m., bringing pizza and a presence that filled the doorway. Coach Williams had played pro before blowing out his shoulder, and he'd maintained that NFL intensity. Monroe, he said, setting the boxes on my desk. You taught my boys about compound interest and predatory lending. Now they're actually reading their contracts. You need anything safe walks to class, study space in the athletic center, legal fund, help you ask. I just need them to tell the truth, I said. That's the easy part. He pulled out his phone, showed me a group chat. 14 of my players saw what happened. They're ready to testify. My phone buzzed, Mom calling for the 9th time. I let it go to voicemail again, but Lena noticed. You'll have to talk to her eventually, she said gently. I know. I pulled up the text I'd been drafting. But not until the restraining order is in place. Not until I can guarantee he can't get to her when she hears what I've done. Maya's laptop dinged. Title IX office responded. Emergency meeting at 7 a.m. tomorrow, before the hearing. They're classifying this as domestic violence with campus safety implications. Good. I opened my own laptop, pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been building. Now let's talk about the real weapon, the paper trail. 3 hours later, we'd constructed a timeline that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. Every forged document dated and cross-referenced. Every suspicious transaction mapped against Kurt's location data from social media posts. Every lie he'd told cataloged with contradicting evidence. "This is insane," Lena breathed, scrolling through the file. "He stole $93,000 over 2 years. $97,432, I corrected. Plus whatever he made selling my social security number on the dark web." Hal stood, stretched his back with a series of pops. "I've got first shift tomorrow, but I'm walking you to that Title IX meeting. Non-negotiable. I've got a camera crew from the Daily Briar who can document the hearing from outside," Lena added. "Public pressure helps." Derek cracked his knuckles. "And I'll make sure he doesn't come near your dorm." They were strangers 12 hours ago. Now they stood like an army around me, ready for war with nothing but truth and paperwork as weapons. "Why?" I asked suddenly. "Why do you all care so much?" Maya answered for all of them. "Because when adults fail us, we protect each other. That's the promise, right? If the people who should keep us safe won't do their jobs, we do it ourselves." She held out her fist. One by one. We bumped knuckles, a silly gesture that somehow felt like swearing an oath. "Besides," Hal added, heading for the door, "assholes like him depend on victims being alone and silent. You're neither anymore." After they left, I sat in the dark, holding the ice pack against my jaw. Tomorrow, we'd enter the legal battlefield. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't fighting alone. My phone lit up with one final message from Kurt. "Your mother will never forgive you for this," I typed back. My first direct response. "She will. When she's free." Then I blocked his number and started preparing for war. Naomi's office looked like a war room. Financial documents covered every surface, color-coded and tagged with sticky notes. A timeline stretched across the wall, 3 years of Kurt's con, mapped out in devastating detail. The coffee maker gurgled in the corner, its 4th pot since we'd started at 6 a.m. "Here's where it gets beautiful," Naomi said, pointing to a cluster of documents with her red pen. "The HELOC applications. Look at the timestamps." I leaned closer. Every application had been submitted between 2 and 4 a.m. on weekends. The IP addresses traced back to Kurt's favorite sports bar, the one with illegal poker games in the back room that everyone knew about but no one reported. "He was drunk," I said. "Sloppy." "Better he was desperate. Look at this." She pulled up bank records on her laptop. "Every HELOC draw corresponds to a major loss. He'd lose $5,000 at the tables, then pull 6 from the house equity. The extra 1,000 that went to Patricia Hendricks, our friendly neighborhood notary." Patricia Hendricks, the woman who'd sworn she'd witnessed my mother's signature on documents my mother had never seen. We'd found 17 instances so far, each notarization costing Kurt $1,000 cash. "She's flipped," Naomi announced, checking her phone. "Her lawyer called 10 minutes ago. Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges." My phone buzzed, Lena sending screenshots from Kurt's social media. He'd been posting from a casino in Atlantic City the same night Mom's signature appeared on a loan document. In the background of one photo, you could see a timestamp on a slot machine, 3:18 a.m. "Add it to the pile," I said, forwarding it to Naomi's paralegal. Maya knocked and entered, carrying a manila envelope. Campus security pulled footage from the ATM outside the administration building. "Kurt withdrawing cash from your mother's account. 2 hours after she'd clocked in at work across town." The evidence was becoming an avalanche, but the smoking gun had come from an unexpected source, Kurt's ex-business partner, who'd reached out after seeing Lena's carefully edited social media post about financial abuse awareness. "Listen to this," I said, playing the voice message on speaker. "Avery. This is Tom Briggs. Worked with Kurt on that car dealership 5 years ago. Saw what happened. Not surprised. He pulled the same shit with our business accounts. Forged my signature on a loan, nearly destroyed my credit. I kept copies of everything. Call me. Naomi was already dialing. 20 minutes later, we had Tom on speaker, his evidence filling in gaps we hadn't even known existed. The house isn't the first property he's done this with, Tom explained. Check the county records for his ex-wife's condo. Bet you'll find a pattern. We did. Kurt's ex-wife, Melissa, had lost her condo to foreclosure 3 years after their divorce. The HELOC paperwork showed suspicious signatures. The notary, Patricia Hendricks. Jesus Christ, Naomi muttered. This is serial fraud. Hal arrived at 11:30 a.m., still in his security uniform. Kurt posted bail. He's been spotted at your mother's workplace. My blood went cold. She doesn't know, already handled, Derek said, appearing behind Hal. Coach sent 2 assistant coaches to park outside her office. They're just recruiting in the area. He made air quotes. Your mom's safe. But I needed her to be more than safe. I needed her free. The documents for the Riverside Protection Trust were ready, a legal structure that would protect Mom's remaining assets while giving her lifetime residency. Kurt couldn't touch it, couldn't borrow against it, couldn't even step foot on the property once the restraining order went through. She won't sign it, I said, staring at the papers. She's too scared. Then we make Kurt's threat irrelevant, Naomi said. She pulled out a new folder. Emergency asset freeze motion. Every account, every credit card, every investment he's touched frozen pending investigation. He can't hurt her financially anymore because he can't access anything. My laptop dinged. An email from the forensic accountant Naomi had hired, with the subject line, "You need to see this." The attached spreadsheet made my stomach drop. Kurt hadn't just stolen $97,000. When you added in the interest, penalties, and missed investment opportunities, the total damage exceeded $150,000. That's college for you and your future siblings, Lena said quietly, reading over my shoulder. That's your mother's retirement. That's prison time, Naomi corrected. Federal prison, once the IRS gets involved. I thought about Mom that morning, how she'd stood frozen while Kurt hit me, not because she didn't care, but because she'd been systematically broken down, financially terrorized until she believed she couldn't survive without him. I need to see her, I said. Too dangerous. Hal started, but I cut him off. No, she needs to see this. I gathered the evidence, not all of it, just enough. The forged signatures next to her real ones, the loans she didn't know existed, the credit cards in her name, buying things she'd never seen. She needs to know it's not about choosing him or me. It's about choosing truth or continuing to live a lie that's destroying her. Naomi nodded slowly. We go together. Public place. The coffee shop on 5th Street. 2 p.m. Hal and Derek nearby. Lena documents from a distance. Like a fucking spy movie. Derek muttered. No, I corrected, pulling up the recording app on my phone. Like a girl who learned that the pen really is mightier than the sword, and that compound interest on fraud charges is a bitch. The laugh that escaped Naomi was sharp as glass. Remind me never to piss you off. Monroe. I looked at the wall of evidence, the years of theft mapped out in black and white. Don't steal from people. Don't hit them. Don't assume their silence means weakness. Pretty simple rules. My phone buzzed. Mom, can we talk? I typed back 5th Street coffee. 2 p.m. Bring your reading glasses. Time to show her what freedom looked like. One document at a time. The parent orientation hall blazed under industrial lighting, packed with families clutching welcome packets and campus maps. The stage at front held a podium with the Briarview seal, microphones that squealed with feedback every few minutes, and a projection screen showing "Welcome Briarview Families" in cheerful yellow letters. Kurt had dressed for the performance-pressed khakis, a polo shirt that hid the bail ankle monitor, even a Briarview parent pin he'd somehow acquired. He worked the room like a politician, shaking hands, laughing too loud at other fathers' jokes, playing the role of devoted stepfather to perfection. There's our financial aid coordinator, he said to a couple beside him, pointing at a harried woman with a clipboard. Need to sort out some paperwork mix-up with my daughter's account. I stood in the back with Maya, watching him work. The bruise on my jaw had turned purple-green, covered with concealer that fooled no one. He's really going for it, Maya whispered. Let him, I said. Lena's ready. Maya checked her phone. In position. Audio-visual team is set up, supposedly for the official orientation video. The orientation began at 2 p.m. sharp. The dean of students welcomed everyone, talked about Briarview's values: integrity, community, excellence. Kurt nodded along, the perfect parent absorbing every word. Then came the financial aid presentation. Kurt's hand shot up immediately. Yes, sir, the coordinator said. Kurt Redding, Avery Monroe's father. The lie rolled smooth off his tongue. There seems to be some confusion about who has authorization to manage her student accounts. As the parent who's been handling the family finances, actually, Lena's voice cut through the hall from the AV booth. I think everyone should see something first. The welcome screen went dark. Then, grainy parking lot footage filled the projection screen, Kurt's fist connecting with my face, the sound of impact echoing through the hall's speakers. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Parents pulled their children closer. Kurt's face went from red to white to red again. What is this? He sputtered. This is taken out of context. The video continued. Audio now. Crystal clear. Kurt's voice. You think I'm letting a 19-year-old loose with 20 grand. My response. Including the $3,000 that disappeared from my savings. The slap, the punch, the chaos after. Then, Lena switched to a new clip Kurt at a bar. Not knowing he was being recorded by someone's Instagram story in the background. The kid's college money. That's my money. I'm the one who signs the papers. That little bitch thinks she can cut me off. I'll drain every fucking cent before she graduates. The hall erupted. Parents shouted. Security moved toward the stage. The dean grabbed the microphone, trying to restore order. But Lena wasn't done. The screen now showed documents split screen comparing signatures. Kurt's real signature from his driver's license. The forged versions on loan documents. Side by side. The forgery was obvious even from the back row. This man, Lena's voice came clear through the speakers, has stolen over $100,000 through identity theft and fraud. He assaulted a student on campus property, and he's currently violating a restraining order by being here. Kurt lunged for the AV booth, but Derek materialized from the side door, blocking his path. I wouldn't, Derek said simply, and Kurt stumbled back. Hal Bishop walked onto the stage in full security uniform, his body cam's red light visible even from the back. Mr. Redding, you're in violation of a no-contact order filed with campus safety. You need to leave. Now. This is bullshit, Kurt screamed, all pretense gone. That money is mine. I raised that ungrateful. Maya had her phone out, live streaming to the campus safety Facebook page. Keep talking, she said. Please, keep confessing to financial crimes in front of 300 witnesses. The dean finally got control of the microphone. Parents, please remain calm. Campus security is handling this situation. It's already handled, I said, walking down the center aisle toward the stage. Every eye tracked me, followed the bruise on my jaw, the papers in my hand. These are copies of the restraining order, the asset freeze, the criminal charges filed with both state and federal authorities. I climbed the 3 steps to the stage, my boots echoing in the silence. This man is not my father, I said into the microphone, my voice steady despite the hammering of my heart. He's a thief who happened to marry my mother. He's stolen my identity, my mother's equity, and tried to steal my future. I turned to Kurt, who stood frozen between Derek and campus security. But here's what you didn't steal, I said directly to him. You didn't steal my voice. You didn't steal my evidence. And you sure as hell didn't steal my ability to fight back. Naomi Klein entered through the main doors, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers. Kurt Redding. You're under arrest for violation of a protective order. You have the right to remain silent. You fucking bitch! Kurt screamed at me as they cuffed him. Your mother will choose me. She always chooses me. Actually, Mom's voice came from the back of the hall, and everyone turned. She stood in the doorway, holding the Riverside Protection Trust papers. I choose my daughter, and I choose freedom. She looked smaller than usual, fragile in her grocery store uniform she hadn't had time to change out of. But her voice was clear as she continued. I signed the papers. Avery, the house is in the trust. He can't touch it anymore. She looked at Kurt. You can't touch anything anymore. They dragged Kurt out as he screamed threats, promises, pleas, the entire spectrum of an abuser losing control. The hall stayed silent until the doors closed behind them. Then, slowly, parents began to applaud. Not for the drama, but for something else, for a young woman who'd refused to be a victim, for a mother who'd finally found her courage, for justice served with paperwork instead of violence. The dean cleared his throat. Well, perhaps we should take a brief recess. No need, I said, gathering my papers. The show's over. Orientation can continue. I walked off the stage, Maya and Lena meeting me at the bottom. Derek clapped me on the shoulder gently, mindful of everything. That was fucking epic, he said. That, I corrected, was just the beginning. The stench of gasoline and sweat filled the hallway outside my dorm room at 317A. Two men in dirty jeans and Carhartt jackets stood at my door, one holding a crowbar, the other filming on his phone. Kurt says his wife left some jewelry in there, the one with the crowbar said. We're just picking it up for him. Derek emerged from his room 3 doors down, wearing only basketball shorts and carrying his baseball bat. That's funny, because visiting hours ended at midnight. The men turned, sizing up Derek's 6'4" frame. This ain't your business, kid. Everything on this floor is my business. Hal's voice came from the stairwell. He climbed into view, still in his security uniform from the night shift, radio already in hand. Gentlemen, you've got about 30 seconds before real cops join this party. The crowbar clattered to the floor. We were just breaking and entering, attempted burglary, violation of a restraining order by proxy. I stepped out from Maya's room where I'd been sleeping, my phone recording everything. Kurt's really getting desperate if he's sending dollar store thugs. Bitch, the smaller one spat. Kurt said you were a lying little... The police arrived before he could finish, summoned by Hal's earlier call when he'd spotted them entering the building. 2 more charges for Kurt's growing collection. His bail was revoked that morning, but Kurt wasn't done. By noon, the Riverside Community Facebook page exploded with his version of events, post after post from his account, painting me as an ungrateful daughter who'd fabricated abuse claims to steal my mother's house. He posted old photos, Christmas dinners where everyone smiled, my high school graduation where his hand rested on my shoulder like a real father's might. This is bad, Maya said, scrolling through the comments. People are believing him. Lena cracked her knuckles. Time for Journalism 101 fact-checking edition. She worked for 6 straight hours, creating a point-by-point rebuttal with receipts. Every claim Kurt made, she countered with documentation. He said he'd paid for my education. She posted the loan documents in my name. He claimed he'd renovated Mom's house. She found permits showing the work was done before he'd moved in. He swore he'd never touched my college funds. She shared the transaction history, amounts and dates, tied to his casino losses. Don't post the actual documents, Naomi warned over the phone. That violates privacy laws, but you can reference them, quote the case numbers, invite people to check public records. The tide turned when Tom Briggs chimed in with his own story about Kurt's past fraud. Then Kurt's ex-wife Melissa commented, breaking years of silence. This is exactly what he did to me. I lost everything. Don't let him fool you. Kurt responded by driving to Mom's workplace at 4:45 p.m., just before her shift ended. He couldn't enter the restraining order covered her work, but he parked across the street, engine running, watching. Mom called me, terrified. He's just sitting there. Don't leave. Hal's on his way with the police. But Kurt saw them coming. He peeled out, tires screaming, and led them on a chase through downtown Riverside. It ended when he clipped a parked car trying to run a red light. No one was hurt, but the DUI charge stuck. He blew a .18. That night, Mom stayed in my dorm, sleeping on Lena's air mattress. We sat in the dark, listening to her cry, not sad tears, but the exhausted relief of someone who'd been holding their breath for years. "I knew," she whispered. "Deep down, I knew something was wrong. The bills that never made sense, the signatures I didn't remember, the way he'd get angry if I asked about money. Why didn't you leave?" Maya asked gently. "Where would I go? He'd destroyed my credit, isolated me from my family. Convinced me I was too stupid to manage alone." Mom's voice cracked. "He said no one would believe me over him." "But they did," I said, holding her hand. "The evidence believed you." My phone buzzed unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. "You think you've won." Kurt's voice slurred through the speaker he was calling from jail. "I'll get out. I'll come for you both. You can't hide behind paper forever." "Actually," I said, putting him on speaker and starting a new recording, it's called the law, and you just added witness intimidation to your charges. Fuck your evidence. Fuck your restraining order. When I get out." The line went dead. The jail monitored calls and cut him off when threats started. But I had enough recorded. Another nail in his legal coffin. Naomi called an hour later. Patricia Hendricks gave us everything. Every forged notarization. Every bribe. Names of 3 other victims we didn't know about. Kurt's looking at 15 to 20 years if convicted on all charges. But even facing decades in prison, Kurt had one more play. At 2 a.m., Mom's phone rang. Kurt's mother, crying, begging her to drop the charges. "He's my only son. He made mistakes, but prison, please, Linda. For the years we were family." Mom looked at me, then at the trust papers protecting her home, the bruise on my jaw, the printouts of everything he'd stolen. "We were never family," she told Kurt's mother. "Family doesn't do this to each other." She hung up and blocked the number. Then, for the first time in 3 years, my mother smiled small and fragile, but real. "No more," she said. "No more secrets. No more fear. No more." Outside, campus security did another sweep of the building. Hal nodded through our window, all clear. Kurt was in jail, his flying monkeys scattered, his house of forged cards collapsing. But I kept the evidence close, kept recording, kept watching. Because men like Kurt didn't give up easy. They just got more desperate. And desperate men made mistakes. The courtroom smelled like old wood and anxiety. Judge Catherine Walsh presided, her reading glasses perched as she reviewed the mountain of evidence. The gallery was packed students, reporters, Mom's co-workers, even some of Kurt's gambling buddies who'd come to watch the show. Kurt sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, his public defender looking overwhelmed by the boxes of documentation Naomi had provided. His ankle chains rattled every time he shifted. "Your Honor," Naomi began, voice cutting clean through the room. "We're presenting evidence of systematic fraud spanning 3 years. Identity theft, forgery, wire fraud, FAFSA fraud, and financial elder abuse, though Ms. Monroe isn't elderly. The pattern of control fits the statute." She clicked her remote. The first slide appeared a timeline of Kurt's con, color-coded and devastating. "Let's begin with the HELOC fraud. 17 separate instances of forged signatures, each notarized by Patricia Hendricks, who has already pled guilty and will testify today." Patricia took the stand, looking smaller than when she'd stamped those documents. Her voice shook as she detailed the scheme, how Kurt paid her $1,000 cash per signature, always at night, always with threats about what would happen if she refused to continue. "He said he'd burn down my office," Patricia testified, "said he knew where my daughter went to school." Kurt's lawyer objected prejudicial. Judge Walsh overruled. The defendant's pattern of intimidation is relevant, Maya testified next, describing the assault in the parking lot with clinical precision. She'd brought her RA training manual, showing the exact protocol she'd followed, establishing an unbroken chain of documentation. The victim's injuries were consistent with domestic violence patterns, Maya said. Bruising on areas typically covered by clothing, except for the facial strike which occurred in public. Hal's testimony was military precise. He played his body cam footage, timestamp visible, showing Kurt's assault and subsequent threats. The courtroom went silent, watching Kurt scream that the money was his, that I was stealing from him. In 20 years of security work, Hal said, I've never seen someone so brazenly admit to financial crimes while committing assault. Derek took the stand next, all 6'4" of him barely fitting in the witness box. I played defensive line for 3 years, he said. I know how to read body language, anticipate violence. Mr. Redding was coiling to strike again when I intervened. Then came Lena, wheeling in a cart of printed screenshots, metadata reports, and video files. She walked the court through the digital evidence timestamps, IP addresses, the correlation between Kurt's location and fraudulent transactions. This image, she said, pointing to a Facebook photo, shows Mr. Redding at Caesar's Palace at 2:43 a.m. The HELOC application was submitted from that location at 2:51 a.m., while Mrs. Monroe's phone GPS shows her at home, asleep. The prosecution's forensic accountant testified about the money trail, every dollar tracked, every loss documented. The judge's expression darkened as the numbers climbed $97,000 in direct theft, another $60,000 in interest and damages. Mr. Redding's gambling losses for the documented period total $340,000, the accountant said. His legitimate income for the same period was $85,000. Finally, I took the stand. Naomi had prepared me, but nothing really prepares you for staring at the man who terrorized your family while you detail his crimes. When did you first suspect fraud? Naomi asked. June 15th, when I saw a credit alert for a card I didn't open. But looking back, there were signs for years, bills that didn't match our spending, Mom crying over finances that made no sense, Kurt screaming about money while driving a new motorcycle. Tell us about discovering the extent of the fraud. I walked through it the internship at Northbridge, learning forensic accounting, running my family's finances through fraud detection algorithms. The courtroom was silent except for the scratch of the court reporter's keys. Kurt's lawyer tried to cross-examine, suggesting I'd fabricated evidence, that I was a vindictive stepdaughter. I responded with dates, numbers, documentation references. Is it true you never called him Dad? The lawyer asked. It's true I never called him Dad. I said, it's also true he stole my college fund, assaulted me, and destroyed my mother's financial future. The first fact doesn't negate the others. The judge called a recess. When we returned, Kurt had made a decision he wanted to testify. His lawyer looked horrified. Naomi looked like Christmas had come early. Kurt took the stand, and within minutes, destroyed himself. He claimed the signatures were real, then couldn't explain the timestamps. He said he had permission to use the college funds, then admitted there was no documentation. He insisted Mom knew about the loans, then couldn't explain why she'd never received statements. Your Honor, Naomi said during cross-examination, I'd like to play an audio recording made during a legal jail call. Kurt's voice filled the courtroom. When I get out, I'll fucking destroy them both. Burn the house down if I have to. Mr. Redding, Judge Walsh said, removing her glasses. In 30 years on the bench, I've rarely seen such comprehensive documentation of financial abuse. The evidence is overwhelming. She read the verdict like she was personally offended by Kurt's existence. Guilty on all counts. Identity theft 5 years. Wire fraud 8 years. Forgery 3 years. Sentences to run consecutively, not concurrently. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm ordering full restitution $157,000 plus interest. Assets in Mr. Redding's name will be liquidated. The house remains protected under the Riverside Trust. Kurt exploded. "You fucking bitch!" he screamed at me. "You destroyed everything!" The bailiffs moved, but he was already lunging across the defendant's table. He made it 3 feet before they tackled him, adding assault charges to his sentence. As they dragged him out, still screaming, Judge Walsh added, "Mr. Redding, you destroyed everything yourself. Miss Monroe just kept the receipts." The gavel came down. It was over. Mom collapsed against me, sobbing. Naomi packed her briefcase with satisfaction. My 4 strangers, now friends, surrounded us like a protective wall. "Federal charges are next," Naomi said. "The IRS doesn't play." But I wasn't thinking about next. I was thinking about the sound of that gavel, final as a door slamming shut on 3 years of hell. Kurt would serve at least 16 years. The house was safe, Mom was free, and I had a semester of college to start, with my own money, my own name, my own future stretching ahead unmarred by his shadow. Justice tasted like courthouse coffee and sounded like chains rattling as they led him away. The Riverside Protection Trust documents felt heavier than their single pound of paper. Mom's hand shook as she signed her name, her real signature, witnessed by a legitimate notary, in broad daylight at 2:15 p.m., in Naomi's office. "Initial here," Naomi instructed. "And here. This locks the house permanently. No loans, no liens, no leverage. Kurt or anyone else tries to touch it. They hit a legal wall." Mom looked at me as she signed the final page. "I should have protected you. Instead, you protected me." "We protected each other," I said. "Eventually." An email popped up on my phone from the Briarview Financial Aid Office. Subject account restoration complete. The fraudulent charges erased. The stolen loan money returned to the proper accounts. My work-study funds released. 4 years of education, secured and untouchable. Maya knocked and entered, carrying a bottle of sparkling cider. "Thought we should celebrate." Derek followed with plastic cups. Hal with a grocery store cake that said "Justice" in blue frosting. Lena brought her camera not to document, just to capture. "Wait," Lena said, setting up her tripod. "Everyone get in close." We crowded together on the steps of the administration building, Mom in the middle, still in her grocery store uniform. Maya threw up peace signs. Derek flexed unnecessarily. Hal stood at attention. I held up the restraining order like a diploma. The camera clicked. "One more," Lena said, joining us for a selfie. 5 faces pressed together, exhausted but victorious. Behind us, Briarview's motto carved in stone, "Truth conquers all." Back in my dorm that evening, I opened my laptop to check my class schedule. Introduction to Business Law, Forensic Accounting, Technical Writing, Statistics. The cursor blinked on my financial aid portal account status clear. Balance 0. No holds, no flags, no mysterious charges. I pulled up the file I'd named Redding, 300 pages of evidence. Every receipt, every timestamp, every lie cataloged and filed. My finger hovered over the delete key. "Don't," Maya said, watching from her perch on my desk. "Keep it. You never know who else might need to see what fighting back looks like." So I renamed it "How to Destroy Your Abuser with Excel Spreadsheets and Rage." Then I uploaded it to a cloud server with triple authentication. Evidence forever, just in case. Mom texted from her newly secured home. "Locksmith just left. Changed every lock. Kurt's stuff is in trash bags on the curb." Sion, Hal had volunteered to stand guard while she reclaimed her space. He sent a photo Kurt's golf clubs, his expensive whiskey collection, his lucky poker chips scattered across the lawn like the worthless plastic they'd always been. That night, there was no celebration party, no victory lap around campus. Just 5 people who'd been strangers 2 weeks ago, sitting on the floor of my dorm room, eating leftover pizza and watching Netflix on Lena's laptop. Mom had gone home to her own bed in her own house for the first time in 3 years. "You know what's weird?" Derek said during a commercial break. "This whole thing started with him wanting your bank card. 20 grand he was trying to steal. But the forensic report showed he'd already stolen 5 times that. Why risk everything for 20,000 more? Control, Hal answered before I could. It was never about the money. It was about keeping her under his thumb. The money was just the weapon. My phone buzzed an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, then recognized the area code. Tom Briggs, Kurt's former business partner. Heard about the verdict, he said. 15 years. 16 minimum, plus federal charges pending. Good. A pause. My daughter's starting college next year. I've been teaching her about financial security, identity protection. Thanks to what you did, publicly, with evidence. We're having conversations about abuse that don't start with bruises. After he hung up, I looked at the permanent restraining order, signed and stamped, at the trust documents protecting Mom's future, at my cleared financial aid account, at my 4 friends who'd stood between me and a man twice my size because it was the right thing to do. Kurt thought he'd destroyed me with a fist in a parking lot. Instead, he'd created his own destroyer, a 19-year-old with Wi-Fi, righteous fury, and really good documentation habits. I opened my laptop one final time that night and created a new spreadsheet. This one wasn't for evidence or revenge. It was my 4-year plan graduation requirements, internship applications, law school prerequisites. At the top, I typed my title, Avery Monroe, Future Forensic Accountant, and Nightmare of Financial Abusers Everywhere. Then I saved the file, closed the laptop, and let the screen go dark. The war was over. Kurt was in prison. Mom was free. My education was secure. And somewhere in Pennsylvania, a man in an orange jumpsuit was learning what happened when you confused silence with weakness, when you mistook paperwork for paper cuts that couldn't kill. He was wrong. They could. They did. Case closed. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives matter, and I'd really appreciate hearing how this story impacted you. Until next time, stay strong and keep those receipts.